Hello from the Cannes Film Festival. Today I'm sitting down with a legendary Hollywood icon. From Apollo 13 to A Beautiful Mind, Ron Howard has spent decades telling American stories. Now he's back at the festival with a documentary exploring the life of photographer Richard Avedon. Ron Howard, hello.
Hello.
Delighted to speak to you on Arts 24.
Likewise.
You were first here in Cannes in 1988. With Willow.
Yes.
Then there was Far and Away, The Da Vinci Code. What does this festival mean to you after all these years?
I think the festival, as a sort of a symbol of the excitement around cinema of all types, is sort of more valuable and significant than ever. It's always, it's a thrill, it's an honor to always be included. It's pretty high stakes when you're here with a big Hollywood movie. When you're here with a documentary, frankly, it's much more sort of this sense of pure cinema and community, which means I can kind of enjoy the good vibes of the Cannes Film Festival.
You have a vast career. You've made films about astronauts in Apollo 13, Genius and Obsession in A Beautiful Mind, Formula One rivalry in Rush. What was it about Richard Avedon that captured your imagination?
We have this opportunity to have access to these archives. This is not something that the foundation and the family have been really open to before. And I immediately thought it would be really interesting because of the various decades that Avedon worked in and the kinds of photos that he was taking to understand sort of the story around the photos. Because I didn't know how interesting Richard Avedon's story would be. And slowly but surely, as we began interviewing people, looking for these anecdotes and these stories about the photos, which are in there, but they're not the center. The center is this artistic journey that is so interesting to me because he was commercially very, very successful, but also creatively courageous, took a lot of risks, didn't always work out for him in the media. Critics were sometimes very tough on him.
And he was really sensitive to that.
And he was very sensitive to it, but it never stopped him. And so it began to be this sort of case study, this object lesson in a creative life, and wind up meaning how profound the reach could actually be in its summation. And I became very inspired by that.
Well, it was really vast what he did. He captured post-war glamour, he captured celebrity culture, but also Vietnam and protest movements. Did making the film change the way you saw or you see America?
No, it didn't change the way I see America, because I probably, kind of understand, having lived through the Vietnam era, how tumultuous it was. What's interesting to me and inspiring is that he stopped to see in the moment and stepped away from his career when he, at his highest level of earning power, to say, no, I need to use my skills, I need to use my talent, I need to use my access to at least contribute to a deeper understanding of this moment.
In some ways, there are similarities between your career as well.
That's very flattering. Thank you.
Well, how vast it was and how wide the scope is. Like, for example, Splash, Apollo 13, Arrested Development, A Beautiful Mind, Hillbilly Elegy, very different subjects. Do you feel that your work also tells a bit of a story of America over the last 70 years?
Well, America, and to some extent even, the world. One of the films I'm proudest of in recent years was 13 Lives. Which maybe had one or two Americans in it, but it was really about various cultures coming together to achieve something great. This was about rescuing the kids who were trapped in a cave in Thailand.
Last seen 9 days ago, 12 boys and their coach are trapped in the flooded caves.
So I think I'm always interested in whether it's, fiction, fantasy, pure fantasy, or movies based on real events, in what it can mean, when people come together, when either family units or disparate groups come together to try to achieve something. I'm always fascinated by that.
You've had huge commercial success over the years. Apart from 13 Lives, which you mentioned, is there another film that you wish had had a bigger audience?
Oh, Well, I always want every movie to have a huge audience, and some do, and some don't. I'm very proud of the movie Frost Nixon, which I ultimately wound up having a really good audience, you know, through all the aftermarket and DVDs and pay-per-view and streaming and all that. But at the time, even though it was nominated for Academy Awards, reviews were good, you know, we didn't have real great box office at that point.
Oh, pleasure to meet you.
Mr. President. That was devastating. I mean, I don't think he's ever going to get over that.
Frost Nixon was about Sir David Frost, journalist, British journalist, won the rights to have this sit-down interview with Richard Nixon after Watergate, after he had resigned. And it was the first real open conversations that Nixon was willing to have. And eventually, Nixon sort of admitted that he felt like the presidency had a different set of rules and operated under a different standard than the rest of the world. And that's shocking. And it was very, very revealing. And Nixon ultimately apologized for some of the positions that he took in a very guarded way, but it was a journalistic breakthrough. So it's a great story of Frost getting to Nixon, and Nixon finally almost unburdening himself in a way. And Peter Morgan wrote it, and it's who also did The Crown and so many great projects. And so I'm really proud of it. And you know, the Frost interviews were a reminder, and we need to stay on our toes today.
And that brings me to your 2020 film, Hillbilly Elegy,
right,
which of course is based on J.D. Vance's memoir about growing up in working class America. It's taken on a completely different meaning maybe now, since he's become vice president. How do you reflect on that film now? I
was really interested in his childhood, his relationship with his grandmother, his relationship with his mother, and how he navigated that, and how they supported him or didn't, you know, depending on you know, his journey. And so, you know, that story I stand by completely. I think, you know, in retrospect, at that moment he wasn't running for office or even contemplating that.
Ron, over the years you've worked with so many different personalities, J.D. Vance, but also some real Hollywood greats like Bette Davis, George Lucas, Tom Hanks.
Right.
Tell us about one big lesson that you've learned over the years from Hollywood.
As an actor, I had a chance to work with some of these legends like John Wayne, direct Bette Davis, Jimmy Stewart, Henry Fonda, and I began to see a real connective tissue there. It had to do with recognizing the work ethic required to maximize, you know, their impact on the story and audiences. And so certainly it was about using kind of what they had to offer and understanding what that was, but it was also about demanding of others a level of commitment toward excellence in service of. And I began to recognize that with all the resources that would go into every single project, the one thing you could do is give it a full effort. And these people who had endured, who I was now meeting in their 70s and working with very late in their careers, and they still had that fire in the belly to do that job. And I said, well, that's the secret sauce, is that commitment. You know, just not a lazy bone in their body.
Well, you're like that, aren't you?
Well, I think
You've still got the fire in your
learned.
belly.
I do. You know, I'm just turned 72, and I feel energized. I'm less tired at the end of making a movie today than I was at 35 or 40. I think some of that's the technology that's making the process just a little easier. Some of it's my own understanding. Maybe I lose a little less sleep. Maybe there's a little less tossing and turning at 3 in the morning now for me than there was, you know, decades ago.
You've been in the business since you were 4. What's the biggest change you've seen during that time?
It's not the tech. Cinema has always been driven by technology, and in my entire life it's been changing. I mean, I began working in the live television era when it wasn't just Saturday Night Live. It was, you know, dramas and comedies. But there is a global aesthetic that is exciting. And it's as the world gets smaller, as audiences broaden their sensibilities, Netflix plays a big role in this. You know, TV shows, movies from every corner can be discovered and appreciated. And that's giving cinema a kind of different aesthetic. And that's very, very exciting. But these are kind of incremental. The fundamentals remain the same. What's the story? What's the idea? How can it connect to the audience? How do we use the tools of cinema to stage and present, you know, a point of view about the story?
Okay, Ron Howard, thank you so much.
You bet.
Thank
Pleasure.
you.
Thanks.